Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to be talking teddies. So primarily we're going to be looking at the Prima range of sublimatable soft toys. So obviously these come in a wide variety of different animals, but for this video we're going to do the rabbit. So you'll be able to print the chest on these, you can print the feet and you can print the ears. The different animals have different areas that you can print, but the rabbit's got all three, so we're going to look at how to do the rabbit. I have seen these used for loads of different things. People are using them for Christmas gifts, they're using them for birthday gifts. The rabbits especially really popular at Easter. I've even seen them used as gifts to flower girls or bridesmaids for weddings, things like that. Nice little personalised product. So the big question I always get asked, but it's a 3D teddy, how do I press it in my flat press? Well, that's what we're going to cover today. They can go in the press and they can be done in there. So that is primarily what we're going to cover. We're going to go through everything and show you how to get a design onto these teddies. So what you're going to need is a heat press. So we are going to use the Prima Heat Presses Auto Plus press for this one. This is a 40x50 press, but any flat press should work just as well. Then you're going to need a printer. So in this video we're using the Epson F100 sublimation printer, so this little A4 sublimation printer. You're going to need some sublimation paper. We're using the Prima paper for this transfer. You're then going to need some ink. So obviously we're using the Epson ink for the F100 printer here. And you're going to need something to measure your blank with so you get your artwork the right size. So I've got a little measuring tape there on top of the printer as well. Now to hold the transfer down, you're also going to want some heat tape. So add that to your list there. You're also going to want to use some baking paper like we've got here, or something like a Teflon sheet or some polyester fabric just to cover over the blank teddy while they're in the press. This not only protects the fur a little bit from coming into contact with the heating element, but it also protects your press from any back transfer of ink. Okay, so once you've got all that together, then all you need to do is pick which of these plush toys you want to use. So in this video we're going to use the rabbit, but it's entirely up to you. The process works exactly the same on all of these toys. Just a quick one before we get into the actual pressing. There's another part of these you can decorate. So cameraman Sam has kindly just reminded me before we carry on, you can actually put your own branding on the back of the label. So this is a 100% polyester label, so this will sublimate as well. So while we're doing the pressing, we'll stick a design on here as well. All right, let's get to it. So first things first, before we get this anywhere near a press, we need some artwork to go on him. So we're going to need to measure the sublimatable areas that we want to put a design on. So what I tend to do is you're going to want to get a tape measure and measure. I tend to measure the height of the area that I can sublimate. So you don't want to go too close to the edge on these, just because where the fur is, that overlaps your design, especially on the longer furred items such as the rabbit here, or the Highland cow, things like that. The fur can get quite long, so we want to keep that brushed back like that, out of the way of our transfer. Yeah, so you don't want to go too close to the edge. So I'm going to run this one at 90 millimeters or 9 centimeters high. Yep. And then we're going to measure across the belly. I'm going to go for probably 80 centimeters. That would be a long way. 80 millimeters or 88 centimeters wide. I tend to like using these little tailor's tapes for these items, because you can actually wrap them around the item and it gives you a better idea of where stuff's going to sit. Obviously using a rigid tape measure, it can be quite hard to judge. So yeah, so we're going to go 90 high or 9 centimeters and 80 wide or 80 centimeters on there. And then we're going to do the same for the feet. So I don't think you want to go too big on the feet. You're probably not going to want to go any more than a sort of 40 millimeter square max. And you can see that there. So that's 40 millimeters across that way, and 40 will sit comfortably there. Again, keeping the fur away from where your design is going to be. And then on the ears, I would say you're going to be looking at, you've got 110 millimeters or 11 centimeters of width to play with, and you're probably going to be looking at around about, I would say 40 millimeters or 4 centimeters of height on both of the ears. Okay, I will pop these up in a list. I'll get Sam to overlay a list of these measurements while we're talking about this, so you can copy them down. And then the label on the back, so you can also sublimate onto this. You are looking at 20 millimeters wide, and I would say you want to, maximum 50 millimeters long, but personally I would keep it to 45 or 4.5 centimeters. Yep. So there we go, I'll get Sam to put onto the screen now the measurements that we've just done there and where they go, and then we'll get some artwork printed off. Okay, so for all of the parts of this teddy, what we're going to want to do is set our press to 185 degrees C, and we're going to run it for 70 seconds, okay? For the feet and the body, you're going to want the pressure to be quite firm, and then obviously we'll need to increase that again for the ears, because they're thinner, and then again for the label, because it's thinner again. Okay, so we're going to start with 185 degrees C for 70 seconds. Okay, so we've got our artwork there and we've got it cut out. Okay, so we're going to want to apply this to the front of the blank. So I'm going to line that up on there. You want to make sure all of this fur is brushed out of the way and isn't underneath your transfer. Okay, because obviously the sublimation transfer will dye the fur if you're not careful. And then I'm just going to, first thing I do is I just put a bit of tape on to hold it in place. Okay, so I'm just going to tape it there to hold that in place. It makes it a lot easier then to go around the whole transfer with tape. You want to make sure that these are really well taped down. Okay, see I've missed a bit there. You want to make sure that these are really, really well taped down because it being a 3D object, when it bounces back up, that paper can move. Now this may, as I say, look like overkill. However, the last thing we want this to do is move. And when it springs back up, it can do that and you end up with ghosting. There we go. Alright, when we get the rabbit over to the press, we want to make sure that as many of the limbs as possible are outside of the press. I'm going to use the corner here. Just want to put that down the back. Yep, make sure there's enough to cover the transfer and then kind of pull the head back. Again, just have a last check for any fur that's hanging over. The white bit, you want to make sure that's well out of the way. Yep, and then we're going to put a bit of baking paper. To be able to cut that. I'm going to put a bit of baking paper, like so, over the top of the rabbit. That's just going to protect the fur a little bit more from the heat, but it's also going to protect your press from anything coming back. Alright, so again, make sure it's seated. Now this does look really brutal because it's a fluffy, cute animal, and you're going to close the press down onto the rabbit. We've got quite a firm pressure on there, yeah, but we'll make sure the head's out nice and out of the way, and that's going to run for 70 seconds. Right, okay, so when it's getting near, if you've got an auto open press, I'm just going to hold the bear, just so that when the press pops up, the bear doesn't jump out of the press, you see? So the head will stay nice and cool. Then what we want to do is we want to take the bear out. Okay, so when we take him out of the press, he's going to look a little bit worse for wear, but don't panic, okay? All we need to do is get some of this tape off, which can be a little bit tricky, so I'm going to get Sam to scroll through this. Okay, so once you've got the tape off, you can see we've got our lovely design on there, but you might think, oh no, I've melted all this fur. You haven't, watch. If I grab the foot where it looks melted, and you just rough it up again, it's actually not melted at all, it's just been pressed very, very flat. Yeah, there we go, now he's looking a bit healthier. Alright, so there he is, looking a little bit better off, now that we've fluffed his fur back up. That's how we get the chest piece on. The next section is we're going to do one of his feet. Come on then, back in the press. Alright, so for his feet, we have two little designs there. It's actually going to be that way around, to go on the white parts of his feet. But in this video, we're just going to do the one. So I'm just going to show you how to press the one foot. Obviously, the same process applies to both, but you do want to press one foot at a time. Don't try and get both in the press at once. So I'm just going to pop that on his foot like so. And we're going to tape it on. Again, you want to make sure all of this fur is out of the way. That's the most important thing to remember when you're doing these plushies, because it will dye the fur as well. So I tend to put one bit of tape on there, and then same again, we go right around the edge. Brilliant, let's get him back in the press. Okay, so to do the feet, you want to have your rabbit facing down and pop the foot in like so, right? And we want to cover that with baking paper and make sure that the top of the foot is facing up in the press. And then you want a really firm pressure again, like we did with the chest. That's going to make sure this print doesn't move and that it transfers correctly. Okay, so we're nearly there on the time. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold the rabbit so it doesn't jump about too much when the auto open mechanism kicks in on the press. Okay. There we go. Remove the baking paper. We'll get him over to the bench and get this off his foot. Alright, so then we do the same as we did with the chest and we just get this print off of his foot. So I'll let Sam speed through this because it obviously taped it down very, very tight. We need to get all this tape off. There we go. So you see we've got the letter on the press, and then like we did before, just fluff up the press around it. I have got another tip coming at the end of the video for making sure that the fur looks right, but we'll get to that at that point. Okay, so we've got our little design for the ear. So obviously the ears are a little bit easier actually to tape onto than the rest of the body, because you can leave yourself plenty of space to get away from that, from the hair around the outside. So again, just making sure there's no overlap on the hair, but the ears are a lot bigger on these. So there we go. I'm just going to tape that down like that. Okay, so that's nicely firm taped down. Again, you want to tape it down nice and firm so that the design doesn't jump. Okay, but that's it. Let's get them in the press. Alright, so with the ears, it's the same with the feet. It's important to remember to do one ear at a time. Don't try and do both ears. You want to do them separately. So you want to get that in your press. Everything else should be hanging over the edge of the press. Yep, that will protect it and keep it away from the heat. The other thing you're going to need to do is adjust your pressure down tighter than what you had for the feet and the chest, okay? Because the ears are a lot thinner. We're going to again cover everything with baking paper and drop the press. Alright, as we get again, like we have done with the other bits, just get hold of the teddy just before the press bounces if you're opening one of these auto open presses. That'll just make sure that it doesn't jump about and you get the ghosting. There we go. So I just held that firm there and it keeps everything in place. Take the baking paper away and then we'll take him over to the bench and let's get his ear off. There we go. So, and that is his ear done. So again, we're just going to remove the tape. Now the tape can hold quite tight on these bears. There we go. Yeah, and then we just fluff him back up again. There we go. You can see that's pressed on the ear. And that's it. So that's all three of the main bits of the teddy. We just need now to have a look at the label. Alright, the last part there is just the label. So I've got a little your logo here design to put on there. And what I'm going to do is I tend to, if I'm doing thin things like that, I'll actually stick the design to the tape and then trim the tape down to fit. So I'm just going to nip a little bit off the end of the tape and you can kind of apply it like a sticker. So I'm going to put that there. Again, make sure you don't get any fur underneath it. And then just wrap, just get that nice and tight in there. And then just wrap the tape around the label. And that will hold that in place while we put it in the press. Alright, so at the press, you just want to pop the label in, same as we did with the rest of the bear. Now with things like this, I tend to put my baking paper on the press first, and then just slide those between, because you're going to want to hold the rabbit, still a rabbit, until after the press is closed. So you just want to slide the label in. You can even bring the baking paper up onto the rabbit a little bit, onto the soft toy. That's just going to protect any of the fur that's next to the element, you see. I'm just going to drop that down. You want quite a firm pressure on that one because it's a very thin label, and then you can just let the rabbit drop. Alright, again, because he's kind of hanging off his label out of the side of the press, just lift him up a little bit while the timer gets to the end, and the press will open. There we go. And we can just get him over to the bench and we can get the design peeled off the label. Alright, there we go. We'll just peel that off. As you can see, that your label here is now on the label. Perfect. Okay, and there we go. So that is the final bear. He's looking a lot better now. He's got all of his parts sublimated. So we've got both ears. I went ahead and did the ears and the feet, just so you could see what it looks like when they're all pressed. Brilliant. So, as you say, I know a lot of people are nervous about putting these in a flat press. Okay, you can do it. The toys can handle it. You just got to kind of follow a few little tips when you do it. I do have an additional tip to go at the end of this video, and that is use a lint roller. So when you bring them out of the press, you can see the hair's been flattened down a lot and it looks quite shiny. Take your lint roller, roll it against the grain of the bits that are flat, and that'll just fluff them back up again. Alright, so what we've covered here works for all of the teddies in the range. Okay, the top things I can say to you are, I would recommend doing the chest first, but while you're pressing it, keep as many of the limbs out of the press as you can. I'm going to get Sam to put these tips in a list just next to me. Okay, so I do the chest first, then I can tighten my press slightly and do the feet. Again, do 1 foot at a time. You don't want to try and do both. It makes it a lot more difficult to orientate the bear so that you get the right sort of part of the foot facing the heat platen. Once you've done the feet, then move on to the ears, because you're going to tighten your press again. And then once you've done the ears, tighten your press again and you can do your label. Alright, well I hope that's helped, and I hope that's taken some of the mystery out of doing these in a flat press. What we covered today will work for most flat presses out there. Alright guys, well I hope you found this really useful. Everything that we've used in this video, including the whole range of the Prima soft toys, which I am going to put up a little clip at the end of the video showing you all of them that we have to offer. They're all available on the website and the links will be in the description below this video. Okay, stick around for more tips and have a great day.